Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Midweek Takeaway. Today we're joined by Kyler Hardy, President and CEO of Cloudbreak Discovery. Welcome back, Kyler. How are you doing?
Great. Good to see you guys. It's been a little while here.
Been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, we saw the last time we saw Rory just before Christmas.
That was it, yeah.
Because you guys were one of our 12 stocks of 2022. We picked you at I think it was either 1.8p or 2p. So you are actually on the top of our leaderboard right now. So congratulations for that.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, it's nice to see the company getting back to a bit more of a fair value compared to getting pounded in the market every day.
So just recently you announced that Cloudbreak and Alianza Minerals have signed an option agreement with Allied Copper on the State Line Copper Project, Colorado. Do you want to talk us through this news?
Yeah, absolutely. So we generated the State Line asset in conjunction with Alianza, and it had been one of our top 5 targets, including Klondike, which Allied is a partner on as well. And it just took us a little bit longer to put it all together, but it's about 8 kilometers to the southeast of the Lisbon Valley mine, which is a private equity operated mine. And but it's this whole Paradox Basin and this Lisbon Valley anticline that we're focused on there. And it can tie into a bit of a really interesting regional play. If you start to look at the footprint of it, it's similar to what the Lisbon Valley mine is, anyways. Just in our footprint. Unfortunately, we don't have much in the way of information around Lisbon Valley because, like I said, it is private equity and they don't have to tell us anything. But they are mining and they continue to drill out additional resource up there. It's probably another 10 years from what I recall, way back when of material left there still. But State Line, putting that with Allied, we really liked it. We really liked the combination, having a couple of U.S. assets in Allied. Management team is pushing along over there, well financed. We've got exposure for about $500,000 exploration on that this year, which will be really good for us. We did a lighter deal on the stock on the front end on this one, though, because we do want them to spend the cash in the ground, but also a long trend where we see this big opportunity. And we've got some back end bonuses in there to if they do go and acquire more land and spend the cash in the larger regional trend. But hey, at the end of the day, it could be a company builder if they do end up finding something along this large land package at the end of the day.
I guess you could get an idea from even though they're a private equity company you mentioned. Would you have an idea dependent on how long it's been in kind of? Is it actually in production now?
It is in production, yeah. So it went through a bankruptcy from a public company in 2008. That was a really tough time for everyone. Cool. And these private equity guys ended up coming and acquiring. It was a company called Constellation Copper that they acquired. That was they were just trying to get into production then. The private equity put them into production, and I think they're working at about half capacity right now. There was some COVID related issues around all of the ramping up, ramping down, and everything like that. But they are, from our understanding, they're getting a premium price for their copper because of some of the of the quality and the lack of impurities in it, but also how close it is to market. And it really, for them, it's we understand they probably have 10 plus years left on that project as it sits. But yeah, it's a great project. We would have loved to had a crack at it, but clearly we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in that quite yet.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you already had a previous. I think it was in December of last year. You announced another option on the Klondike prospect. How close are the State Line and the Klondike?
They're a fair ways apart. They're a day drive apart, if you will, kind of between the two assets. But you guys probably talked about it with Rory, but we've got 6 kilometers of mineralized trend on Klondike. And they're preparing a drill program. They got up to what was it? I believe a grab sample was up to 6.3% copper on that, with 22 grams per ton silver.
Is that one that's got a funky name? Like, there's something like flying into the diamond or something like that. It was a crazy name he gave us.
Oh, that's right too.
You know what I mean? I was listening back the other day. I was like, it's got one of the wackiest names of a mine I've ever heard. We need to dig that out again because it's
Flying Diamond. Yeah, okay, Flying Diamond or something like that.
Yeah, Flying Diamond or something.
But 6% copper is unheard of almost now.
Yeah, but you know what? That's a nice grab sample. But the chip samples and the in bedrock samples they took. I mean, you're in the 1 to 3% range in that though too. So that's amazing. But it's also the 6 kilometers trend of structurally controlled mineralization that they're looking at. That 6 kilometers. That's a lot of drilling to be done.
That's a huge amount, isn't it? Yeah. But you talked about the other one being because of the size of it, almost like maybe not a district scale, but that's a company changer in terms of what you said.
It could be
about that.
It could be a district scale project. Yeah, it's if they do the regional work and they do the they follow up on a bunch of the old mineral showings and that are in the region there. It's been pretty underexplored. It was held up for a long time under private hands, and it's open now. And the benefit working in the United States is it's a two-edged sword. Data isn't publicly available for a lot of this kind of stuff, these mineral prospects, but the prospectors have that data sitting in bankers' boxes in their basement. So if you find the right prospector, you generate a lot of data that you can follow up on, and you bring them in, they're part of the deal, all that. Others won't have a clue what's going on out there until all of a sudden you've got a discovery and you've tied up the rest of the ground. Yes. It's good and bad. It's harder to find stuff until you know the right guy.
That sounds like it should be in a Western movie, where you suddenly sticking stakes in the ground, ding, 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 this is mine.
That's okay. That's not far off.
Okay.
Well, previously we've talked about the helium play that you had.
But one thing I saw, just come back on that one, was as you do sort of, late on the weekend, I thought I'd get onto YouTube and just do a bit of searching. And I went on to found a video, I think it was Proactive actually, had just done an interview because it was done through the North American team rather than the UK. And obviously I saw an update on the Steveville project, which is with as you said, with Imperial Helium. And the CEO was on, is it David Johnson, I believe. And he seemed very, very happy being interviewed. You could see the big grin, and I was like, wow, this guy's he's a really happy bloke. And the female presenter was saying, well, how are things going with production? And he just said, well, the smile says it all. And I just thought, what a great, he's obviously limited to what he can say, but it looked like the production testing was going pretty well.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I'm just for a bit of clarity, I'm an exec chairman on that on Imperial Helium, and one of the founders of it. We partnered with Petrell Robertson and David Johnson and his management team to put it all together. And we're extremely happy with the results coming out of the the first well. The second well was there's been some challenges. The third well, we're seeing what we want to see. I'm excited to see the production test come up and hopefully fingers crossed, link a few things together. But the great part about it is the team. It's not an exploration project. It's an evaluation project. So they already know there's helium there. They already know there's content in the ground, and they've been doing the geoscience work, the geophysics work, the engineering work to tie it all together, put a resource together. And we've been talking about this for a long time now, and getting that asset into production later on this year or early next year. And they've really made a big strides towards being able to do that. They've been working with an engineering firm. They've been working with an off-taker, and all the pieces are coming together in order to really build that into fruition and be I'm not sure if it's the first publicly listed helium company to go in production, but it'll be one of the first anyways. And that's pretty exciting.
I mean, I think he alluded to a company, was it called Unipor or someone like that, they'd already done some previous work with, and they were talking about some sort of offtake agreement or something along those lines.
That's right. Yeah, they continue to be in discussions around the whole thing. It seems that it's coming to a head, and Uniper. It's I can't remember if it's a UK or a German based.
I think they're German, aren't they? I believe definitely German. Europe. Yeah, they're German. I mean, the one thing that struck me for listeners is, and they may have heard this before, and you can clarify this, is that the Steveville well was originally drilled in something like the winter of 1940. I think it was around that time, and there was a massive blowout, and it literally was venting to air for something like, was it 2 or 3 weeks without any change in the actual pressure of it, and it took a long time to contain it, right?
Yeah, it was blowing out at approximately 50 million cubic feet a day, which is crazy for starters. And I believe it was several months that it did that for. They had to bring in specialized crews to close it off. But the interesting thing about that was it didn't blow up. Actually, it was the gas was not combustible, so that was a great indicator right off the bat. And one of the best things that's come about because of that is it didn't freeze anything. Therefore, it's dry. There's no water associated with it, which complicates your processing later on. So, and your production values. So, it's a great spot to be down there with all those pieces lining up. And it's the first production test there went really well that we did, and we'll have I'd probably say a much more thorough update once we complete the next production test. And I would say the technical guys are pretty happy as it sits right now, and but at the end of the day, it's all what comes out of the ground, and we can't change what's in the ground. We can only go and find it.
Yeah. What's CDL's play on that then? We own how many shares, and we have a royalty on that? What's the situation?
We don't have a royalty on that right now. We'd consider looking at a royalty at some stage. It's a little complicated with me being on the board of both, but always open to it. We've got 1 million and shares and change on that right now. We were an early. We participated in a bridge financing pre-IPO for that, and we're active in it as board members and advisors to David. And my confidence is in David. He's a very, very smart geologist, and his team of incredibly accomplished geologists and engineers, I think, will take this to the next level.
And those shares are listed, yeah?
They are. They're listed on the TSXV under the ticker symbol IHC.
Okay, the other thing that I really wanted to ask you about, because from conversations I've had with you, even though it hasn't been public, was the big play that you guys were trying to do with lithium in America. Tell us a bit more about that and how that's going to add value over the next while.
Absolutely. So, we've spoken pretty regularly about our interest in getting involved in lithium plays. We've had our technical teams evaluating plays, brine formations all over North America. And we've settled in one area that we're currently digging way into the data on right now, and looking to acquire a land base within that area. It's coming along really well. Back to this component of technical data is less available south of our border here from Canada. It's slowed things down a little bit, but ultimately we see lithium brines, especially in the United States, Canada, domestic supply, domestic sourcing as a major push over the next while here. And I actually did from our management firm, Cronin Services and Cronin Capital, a newsletter out to some of our supporters. And I've been talking about this thing called Reserve Life Index. It was one of our emerging investors in Cloudbreak actually brought it up with me. Reserve Life Index is basically how much oil and gas there is and how much is used on an annual basis. And we pretty much know within a margin of error how many barrels or how many million cubic feet there are all over the place for that store of energy. Oil and gas is a store of energy. We have no idea how much lithium there is, and it's becoming this really, really big push to get more critical metals into the supply chain, as we've seen with the price increases. It's a supply demand thing, and the problem is we don't have a reserve life index on these metals right now. copper, lithium, nickel, cobalt, all these little bits and pieces. Cobalt less so, because of the it's generally a byproduct of copper or nickel mining. That's at that. There's we can get into that later. But with these other metals around batteries, okay, all these things form batteries, which battery is a store of energy, a way to store energy, same as oil and gas is, right? And it's a way that we need to store energy. We produce with renewables, we produce with hydroelectric, these types of things. It produces all day long or not at all. And that's the benefit, but also the downfall of a lot of the renewables. If it's not sunny out, your solar is, it's just sitting there. If it's not windy out, you're not generating electricity. When it is windy, you know what? You're producing electricity, but you're just sometimes having to burn it off, basically, or sell it into the grid extremely cheap. Whereas with the battery, I'm not telling you guys and your audience anything they don't know.
Yeah,
but
you can store it and sell it at the right time. Yeah,
exactly. But the problem is we have an idea how much copper there is, how much lithium there is, how much nickel there is, but we don't have that reserve life index. How much do we have in store around the world at any point in time that is available to be mined? And I think that's, part of that is what's pushing those commodity prices up. And I find it to be a really interesting sort of switchover. And every time I, do the exercise of how much copper do we need? How much lithium do we need? How much nickel do we need? I just sort of get lost in the numbers, and the quantums are so large. I kind of, it sounds silly, but I just sort of just stop, because it's like, okay, well, we're good. We've got lots of exploration and project generation to do now to go and find new ideas here. So this is the reason we're going heavily into this. Into the lithium sector, specifically lithium brines, continental North America, because the Argentine, the Chilean, the Bolivian, all these assets, those are harder areas to work. You got to transport the lithium from there still. It's you're dealing with big numbers rather than lower grade, high volume. You move a lot of it through these oil field brines that are, partially developed already with wells either through the formations or just above the formations that we're currently evaluating.
Are they in salt flat?
Not necessarily. Some of them are, some of them aren't. It's there's literal oceans of salty brines under North America. Any place you have oil and gas, there's brines. Most places, not everywhere, but it's whether it's whether they have those dissolved salts in them from millions and millions of years ago, having permeated into it and having the fluid movements. And there's oceans of them. It's just finding the right concentrations and the right pools. Similar to looking for oil and gas, you're looking for the good stuff. It's like an API sort of thing.
So the extraction process, talk me through. Is it pumped out? I mean, what is the process?
Sure. Yeah. So sometimes it's pumped. Sometimes it's got enough pressure in the system already that it'll freely flow. Yeah. But so you drill a well down. You'll complete that well. You may have to frack. You may not have to frack. It just depends on the formation. Everything we've looked at has no horizontal drilling involved in it. So it just it's got very porous formations as it sits right now. Drill that out. Put a production or a facility on top, or a wellhead on top, and then from that stage there, that's where it gets complicated. It's it's metallurgical. It's the extraction process of separating the brines from the lithium, from all the other dissolved solids and minerals that are associated with it. Talking about that actual extraction process that we would employ right now, I think is probably way ahead of and way too forward looking.
It's mad, isn't it?
That's a feasibility study.
Isn't it crazy that you're almost employing modern oil well drilling techniques to get a metal out? I mean, that you would never have thought that, would you?
It's brilliant. I mean, you don't have to dig a giant hole in the ground. You drill a simple well, or you re-enter a well that already exists from areas that have been in production for 100 years, kind of thing. And you're almost taking a liability off somebody's hands having that drilled well bore, and they half the time get it out, get it gone. I don't need it anymore. Go do whatever you want with it.
And they would normally have to pay to decommission that well as well, and they don't have to anymore.
That's right. They remove their plug and abandonment liabilities by working with a group like ours.
Yeah. So is the lithium below the oil or above the oil in general?
Depends which formations you're in, depends which area of the country you're in. Some of it's really shallow, 1,000, 1,200 feet, down to, call it 2,500, 3,000 feet. A lot of the times the oil and gas is below that. Sometimes you do find it above, though. It's just different formations that you're going after. We're not actually trying to go into the oil and gas production formations, because your lease costs get too high. You're bringing out additional contaminants with that oil and gas in there. We want to be a value add. So if somebody already has production, they own the whole strata. We want to be a value add to them by saying, hey, give us X part of the strata, or let us farm in on it, and we'll develop it. Before we get to development, we'll evaluate it and then develop it if it makes sense. And then from there, they get a bit of a royalty or a production payment or something like that out of something that they wouldn't have extracted no value out of previously. So
it's win-win for both sides. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, sometimes we end up taking the P&A liabilities off of these guys, and that does them some good as well.
We're flying off to Africa now. Tell us.
Oh, it's coming along nicely. We are actively generating projects in Cote d'Ivoire. Kudu Resources, our wholly owned subsidiary, is our entity we're using for that. It's our technical team is there right now, hopefully putting the bow on a few interesting assets around Cote. And yeah, I would say it's the start of a much larger presence, specifically West Africa. We are looking at Zambia. We've been very open about that, but it's small steps in there because we're dealing with larger exploration efforts or larger projects if we do look at that area. But the rest of the greenstone belts up through Ghana, Cote, Sierra Leone, Liberia, up into Guinea. Some of those are a little bit tougher countries, but at the same time, kind of that lower portion of the belt is pretty benign and pretty easy to operate in. Rory, myself, Cam, we've all operated there throughout the years, and we're seeing some really interesting projects, underexplored. Getting out of Ghana primarily, every one of their dogs been in Ghana at some point in time. It feels like we want to look at some of the stuff that is a little more underexplored, a little bit earlier stage, some grassroots stuff, focused on local production, kind of these semi-industrial miners that are actively extracting gold from the ground, and start to look at what they're doing and look for the deeper part of the systems that they can't access.
Okay, so Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast, gold in the main.
Exactly. Yep.
Zambia, copper, cobalt.
Copper primarily, with a little bit of industrial minerals we're looking at down there right now, more on the limestone side. Some really, building supply ideas for the other mining projects there. Cement's a major portion of any mine, and lime is as well. And we like the limestone opportunities that we've seen. So those are the two that we're really focused on, and cobalt by extension from the copper.
I got a ping this week by Alliance News, because I have alerts coming up on my feed, and it said that a certain Cloudbreak Discovery CEO has bought 27.8 million shares.
Yes, I did. Really happy about that. It's one of the family offices that had backed us throughout the years. They asked if I'd be willing to buy their position off of them. They're going through the next phase of their development right now, and I was happy to do so. It was they were genteel about it, if you will, and they made a profit. And I'm happy to increase my position. I believe in this company. It's I founded this, holy cow, in 2014. Was one of the first companies we established that eventually all merged together to form Cloudbreak. And this has been part of my business model for over 10 years now. Yeah. And
we love it. We love a CEO with skin in the game. We always say the skin, and that's what's certainly a big commitment.
Is just under 20% right now as far as commitment goes. And Rory, our COO, he bought another bit of a position in the market, off of a cross as well, in order to get that out of some loose hands and give some some of our past supporters a little bit of liquidity. So it's, as a team, heavily invested. Over 23% of the company is in current management, and that we hope to increase that. We've got to be careful though. There's the takeover panel. We don't want to
get near that 29.8 mark, do you? And sort of have to make a formal bid.
Exactly. We want to be careful around that. We wouldn't have taken the company public if we wanted to make a bid on the shares. So, anyways, no, it's happy to increase that position, and we'll be once we clear news here and make sure that everything's baked into the market, we'll actively be picking up additional portions of our company as well.
No, I see. Everybody should be happy the share price has gone up considerably, but actually, we're not even at the highs of just after the IPO last year. It's nowhere near its value, really. £15 million for, I think there's 16 projects, and that doesn't include all the lithium you've talked about, possibly the Côte d'Ivoire. There is huge amounts of projects and potential upside. I think that the thing that me and Phil had talked about was maybe one of these lands in a big way, and it's more than the market cap.
Exactly. You got it. And the nice thing is, I think, our business model diversifies us across a lot of operators. It gives us exposure to a lot of different commodities, and a lot of, some companies are doing well one week, some companies are doing less well one week. And, it gives us that opportunity to diversify our risk profile, get those returns off of having, spent our intellectual capital and, the time and effort and gumption to go out and put these projects together. And you know what? Project generation, we look at hundreds of projects before we settle on a couple we want to pick up, and that gives our partners confidence that we have chosen good assets that do give them a good shot, and they don't have to go out and sift through those 100 projects or however many at the end of the day in order to find that one that does give them a shot to find something of value.
And the other issue also is that right now the royalties that you've accumulated are pretty much valued at zero. 3 to 5 years time, with even just 1, 2, 3 of these projects producing in some way, shape or form, is going to be more than the market cap today as well, probably, in its value. So
absolutely,
you're also betting on the future, I think, with these royalties as well, and that's the interesting play. And when you see some of the royalty companies in London valued 50, 60, 70 million pound market caps, with no more projects than you have, maybe more advanced, I don't know, because I haven't investigated them, to the finest detail, but I can see that the comparisons don't add up at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's we are earlier stage than a lot of our than the field that a lot of our other competitors are in, but you know what? It's an area that Rory and Cam and I are good at evaluating and finding ideas and finding projects to put together. And we are actively investigating much more advanced assets, but we have to make, cautious entrances into those. They take up a lot of time. They take up a lot of effort. It takes away from our core business of project generation, especially on the earlier stage stuff, unless we're able to put it into, an affiliated company quite quickly, or move an option onto an affiliated company relatively quickly for them to advance. So at some point we will see a few more advanced assets and advanced royalties in that, but we want to be sure that we do it in a logical stepped manner rather than guns a-blazing, hoping and praying that it's going to work out.
Kyler Hardy, President and CEO of Cloudbreak Discovery, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your time, Kyler.
Thank you, guys. That was really good to speak with you again, and looking forward to the next time.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.